Dr. Jubb. Hello.
Lukey, g'day, mate.
G'day, mate. Thank
How
you so much
you doing today?
for being here.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just telling
It's really
the channel, I really could not do you justice with an introduction, but I'm just really honored to be able to have you, call in, to be able to call you and receive the amazing insight, information that you have. You've just been amazing. One of probably the biggest influence on my life, in a positive direction, and I really have made it a personal mission to be like you.
amazing. It's modelling what excellence is, and anybody could pick that up. And it's really like water finding its own level for people tuning into the podcast and shows today. I think a great title really could be that, often you can hear it said that many would say, of course, it won't happen. So where somebody could hear something that they are in denial, of course, as a form of acceptance before then integrating it. So there's steps, more or less, where something is some message, but it's certain that what you and I weren't involved with isn't something which we would have agreed to, and certainly not any consideration has existed. And it's possible for us to have a little bit of a look at that, because you need substance, don't you? You need currency and being, and also you need proper law and order. And where you don't have those things, it's sort of really the actual substance which you and I, we the people, need to be able to do anything, of course. But anyway, have you heard that country and western song, Try That in a Small Town?
Oh, I think I have actually. It sounds familiar.
well, the idea is that just people know each other, and so it's not easy to pull the wool over someone's eyes, where people know each other, see. So it's sort of really, really a great truth, of course. But something that we do know is our common sense and common law and time-worn past conditioning that's organised our nervous system, because we all are instinctively social. And could one act, where anyone is listening, of course, what the resolution is, and conciliation to clear away charges that exist, and what the body is more that can discharge those charges, really is the fourth estate, which everything else is below, and all corporate is below. We're the people as a chain of command. And where something is expressed as a claim, then it is, but before it isn't, it isn't. And you've probably heard it said that denial, right? It isn't a very good river, is it?
Right.
When you're in denial only, it's not necessary that you're in proper new mindset, because interest and pleasure is going to be present for you to be more in your frontal cortex as you're putting a frame around something which makes something more meaningful. But before it's possible for us to get maybe to the unconscionable act of contracting with a baby, let's say, and setting things up that you would have a contract that you contracted unconscionably with a baby. So, which you can't do, can you? And so that's kind of really what's going on with the birth certificate. But everybody's award, because some acts occurred which you and I didn't care for, which pledged your body away to pay the debt of the corpse. You could say, like, our work looks at banking and currency, because getting rid of usury is primary reason for eclipse movement, and what the fourth estate will do, clearing things up, which should be wise, as you could see everything ushered into a golden age as a result. But you got the story, like, what's the best story? Because everybody's under a narrative, and certainly a better narrative exists than the ordered sort of 4-day bank holiday type of thing, which stops anybody running on a bank, and that on a Friday everybody hears about things that's going on, and the bank is then closed and has these holidays, and then yet, you know, before all of that would have occurred, the body has already been pledged, and CBCAO, which is a criminal banking cartel of a one world order, and its controllers or stakeholders really have a scam, and that embargo of your own private property, wherever it is really a bail-in what's in the picture sort of thing, as a theft from all of us, our private property, which is called to bail in the too big to fail coming up sort of thing, and one entity can just crash everything, and how ridiculous is that? But it should be put that no put stop can be, but no laws can be, affecting banking until everyone has an insight into how the money mechanics is as currency is created. But gold back, in 1933 was all had to be handed in, and in 1933 on the March the 5th, you've got these acts, and then 2 days later you've got House Joint Resolution 192 and public law being given, which is really about everything being a promissory note that has to be discharged, and so that what went on in the taking of substance away from us wasn't parent treason, because a loophole would be that people could see and be present that you could be a secured party creditor instead of a debtor, but it would be buried and not easy to be found in the tobacco and firearms section. But before this, getting ready for it all, of course, you had 1913 and the largest money trust having formed of the Federal Reserve Bank, and of course all of that wasn't by anything consensual. And then after that, in 1921, you've got the Maternity Act that was passed, and that's really the contracting unconscionably with a baby, and so this is sort of put into play, and of course, it's a fraud against the mother and things on the birth certificate and things, as your name gets taken over by a franchising agency, which, and in 1933 you've got Executive Order 6102 sort of thing, which has come along, and then you've got House Joint Resolution 192 afterwards, some few days, and all of this sort of turns everybody more or less into pledged slaves technically, and so you've got proper currency, but it's not ours, and you don't own that. And on a note, it used to say lawful, and now it says legal tender. And there's a big difference. It's a bit, what's lawful is about equity, and what's legal is really something unilateral owned, which is written to protect someone as one-sided type of a contract. But so lots of things is unilateral, but not lawful per se, but only legal, and then a grey area in between what's lawful and legal, to get a kill box more or less, where somebody really doesn't have a voice and they could be just done away with, sort of thing, in under the procedure sort of a vice admiralty, where you and I, which is a quandary where the court is, you and I, we have a venue which is from the land, yet we all get tricked to only be under commerce, and that's something that we could select or should select, but it's an occupied at the courthouse sort of thing, where black frock, white wig ones are really running things more for the Crown. And so all is really under law, of course, to be with the Corp's treasurer to be able to discharge all debt in House Joint Resolution 192, and somebody could learn how to do that, especially laws which were hidden, in the tobacco and firearms, like what we were talking about. The theft really occurs because you've got so many means that it's certainly under negative economic inductance, which wouldn't be because it doesn't make sense, and it's too costly to uphold such a system that's like that, where you would ask with the people what to do there. We would have positive economic inductance, and it clears away the organisations which is really criminally running things in a manner that's not right for you or I. So, you've got censorship really of this military-industrial complex, and that just describes what you're looking at as really a network, more or less, of those in quasi-government and non-governmental types of organisations. And it's some company member, but not necessary that's somebody that really is, got the same values as you or I do, but I'm certain it's not a proper chain of command per se from we the people when it's come down from a stakeholders and stuff, and it's really foreign influence and things. So, long before 2020 comes along and all this, you've got 2016, and you've got 2017, you've got cyber security and all of these organisations, non-governmentals and things, private, set up, and by the time all that's all getting underway, you've got a big, huge, massive response from those people, behind those censorship, and you've got massive amounts of blocking of and slowing down and labelling and throttling these sorts of things, activities to censor truth and things. So it's not that anybody could deny those sorts of things. You've got home prices which would decline radical, like 75% or more, because it's such a bubbled out balloon. Because when you look at real home prices, which is adjusted for inflation, after 2016, you can see something just massively all of a sudden blown up, way beyond what would be. But the bubble that was before that started in 2008 and went through to about 2016 or something, was real home prices that was adjusted for inflation. If you're just looking at things, you could see that the price of what was inflated beyond belief, it fell or around about some 34% over that time. But afterward, 2016, you're seeing these hedge funds buying up lots of properties real low, which, if that's right, urban wrecking ball was used to erect the environment and then buy low, and then all of a sudden rack the interest rates to be reduced to nothing much, and people would spend like crazy, which had happened, and suddenly the debt that we all have rockets out, and it's tenfold increase on any budget sheet, massive bubble. I mean, so what's gone on is the price of real estate, which is fixed, has would decline by some 75% or more sooner than anybody would think. Talk about, that's not supposed to happen. Yet it's a struggle because you've got real estate value where a nation's currency is pegged, and you're the real estate, in fact, they're unlimited worth, and yet the danger is where your bonds are and birth certificates being traded as the real estate is really all set up and designed to fail, because you and I didn't set that up, someone else did. And that's, what the whole CBCOA system really is. But it's actually, you and I could free ourselves more with Article 4 and 3 courts, which really is what's pre-ordered and pre-authorised by the government and is protected by the government. And it's a beacon of hope where civic duty really is, which is has been the common enemy, that hasn't really been something that's taken place much, you see, yes? So it's anti-monopoly, stopping monopolisation, which none of us really care too much for that monopolisation of anything. So always a monopoly is something that none of us can stand, because it's just obvious that transparency and consideration isn't going to have been in any system like that, is it? Yeah. And so, what's natural really? And so, if you're looking at any system in nature, like its own quorum sensing, it's like its own natural immunity, where nature is. And you've got topics, of course, which is pertinent to natural immunity, and that's scientific. That pieces that can be shared can clear up things so that you're able to interpret new information that comes in. Yet long term, if you think about it, an antigen, which is a non-ecological substance, is always, where it's in the body, it's equal to an immune compromise. It's never ever an immunity raising, quite the opposite. If you look at albumin, which is a super transporter, and your albumin globulin ratio, that could tell you if you've got a capacity to be able to heal yourself up or not, because albumin is a super transporter, transporting all the nutrients, and fibrin globulins are proteins which come from immunity, and you can only have a certain amount of grams per milliliter in the blood per square centimeter cubed, and there's only and the more that osmotic pressure is in the blood, meaning there is reduced protein in the blood, albumin can be produced by Kupffer cells, but where the blood all gets taken up by dealing with immune challenge and things because of toxin continuously being brought in, not thought of, it's not an easy thing for the body to be able to heal up and clear away what's foreign. And so, you're isolating what's causative and what's apart, and so that you're looking at that and isolating it more. And this is what the fourth estate does, for the nation, which as it should, because otherwise, if you're not internally regulated, and the system is being controlled by those profiting from it, like in a big mick, the rest of the world is looking at this and thinking, is it that everybody there has to be collectively punished because you and I, we're not performing our civic duty? I think that argument is kind of being run around the world, but it's very straw man, because it's not satisfying what you and I have inside as truth, but just a polarized couple of sets of something which doesn't satisfy what you have inside. So that's called sort of a straw man argument. It's a fact that contagion sort of has existed, of course, and that where it's a toxin, and anything that's like that is non-ecological. It's not meant to be in the body. And anything injected, like even water, is not meant to be in the body because it's not meant to have perforated through a membrane, of course. And you can see always albumin is reduced. And why? Well, because vitality to some degree really is lost because the body toxin compromises the amount of albumin, like we said, in your blood, which is your super transporter. And the blood generally remain very hygienic really means that you don't really require any of all of that other extraneous blood platelet produced, like fibrin and globulins. I mean, when an antigen that wasn't meant to be there, which is not ecological, you can't find it and you can't defend any of that to be inside a body at all. It's not hygiene whatsoever, but a response sort of normally for such would really be that you could observe how albumin would have become raised where you didn't have toxin and reduced when you do. So, which is really produced, albumin is produced by osmotic pressure, like we said, being reduced, and it's produced by Kupffer cells. And if you've got a high Gini in your blood more, and what your habit is, this is the proper, correct way to be. Otherwise, the immune system really can be sort of like from a response which has got excessive amounts of globulins from immunity, proteins from immunity being excreted into the blood and lymph, and you have cells which really are also in the red blood corpuscle and things, then more seeing a lot more fibrin, which is a blood clotter and things. And when those things are in excess, albumin has to be reduced because, as I said, you've only got 7.2 milligrams per cubic centimetre. So clearing and having good hygiene of your blood really is what Jubb cell rejuvenation is about, and live food, because you want to make sure that you've got low phosphate, you've got low methionine, and now you're reducing all the substance which creates all of that spike and causes spiculated types of red blood corpuscle. And albumin being raised, you're doing that by having more hygiene and giving your intestine a rest, because, food is meant to be suspended every day to a certain degree. Otherwise, your super transporter, which is albumin, which really transports cellular waste and nutrients to the cells and away, and that sort of thing, really doesn't really happen. So you've really got not many trains pulling into the station, to take people to and from. So that's what really albumin does.
Yeah, my albumin's probably pretty low today. I was fasting for a while and I felt pretty good, and then I caved last night, but I'm starting again now.
Yeah, so the less need that someone has where they're focused on their own body, the better. And now somebody could be more in service, but all of us are focused external toward things about the body and our body external. But the more that we could have a focus more inside and have time for what this is, now work can be done ever more. But soft focus, like you said, is what we all should have overall, and keep a soft focus on things. But this, you and I, we really got a currency meter within ourselves, and you've got also a currency maker, and you're the currency maker actually, only it's been tricked. It is you, your BC bonds, and you're the real estate, which is tradable, bonds, and that's not what you own, but you have a reversionary interest in it. Someone else set that up, and then that took it from us, the babies in your life, through the birth certificate, which is a common law trespass and legal name for it, which clears up stuff that's like that. So, and crimes that have gone on as a result of that not being cleared up, as it is then cleared up. So it's really like my research really behind vaccination never ever being proper ever. So how could I all of a sudden change my mind about that? I've never ever seen that to be anything that would be proper, and advocating that, and really looking into what really is in the blood that you're supposed to have, which are these blood-borne inhibitors, which block and stop the expression of chitin resonance sclerotin, which is a strange protein of what a worm or a bacteria or a mold or a fungus or a parasite is made up out of. And so it blocks and stops that sort of protein from being able to form. And it's improving. And what naturally do you and I have in our body that produces this, which if you've got proper Brunner gland function, in your intestine and stuff, you've got a greater capacity to be able to have proper body surfactant and things. But when you're looking at all the injectables and you've got these little batches scaled up to be large batches, you've got massive amounts of pleomorphism, meaning many changing forms, and most are into monomorphism being taught, which isn't a proper look at science at all. It is many changing forms that occur through an process of aggregation, fusion and differentiation of spores under the microscope versus, this came from DNA, but RNA, how does it form DNA? And how has RNA formed itself when none of that existed? And so what really is a trail or a trial that was done, could have been run, but nobody and nothing in a second trial or any other batch and all sorts of things, and even parts of the batch, because it can't remain in its proper colloidal state. You've got no proper construct of anything valid, because you don't have anything that can be isolated as an antigen, and no claim that can show that a spore's been isolated and that it's monomorphic, meaning it doesn't change its form, which that doesn't follow anything that's in science, because everything is pleomorphic and it's more multiple changing of its form. And as we said, if it's not ecological, hey, that's just not ecological, period. And so it's a criminal pattern where information is censored. And you can see a lot of stuff in alphabet soup land, which really needs to be abolished and disengorged of all the funds and things, because it's just criminally being run as an activity that's interfering more with life, and election going on around the world, and it's then demanding censorship, like you're looking and seeing that. It's wrong, of course. Like, you've got a bloke in New Zealand. He happened to be just a bloke that was looking at working with computers and putting a system together to help pay bills and things. But it was for him, just like anybody, to be a whistleblower, and he could have access to information. Of course he could. Anybody can. And by the law of necessity, you've to disobey an unlawful order, and it's pre-authorised and pre-ordered, matter of fact, by government, that the fourth estate, which is one of the people, which a whistleblower is, and so where somebody could have access and they came across information, how could that ever be said that the person was really dishonest? They had some dishonest purpose. How could that have a motive of a dishonest purpose when money behind all of that does, and not whistleblowing, looking at something? It just is obvious that it's criminal. Something is criminal, and that's being covered up. And you've got a stand-down order having been. So you've got whistleblowers, of course, which you've got lots of COVID, activity going on, since 1918, the Spanish flu, and it's a lot of COVID activity, matter of fact, you see, but not transparent, and like the jab and the data. I mean, that bloke in New Zealand, for instance, he found a value for death apparent, and could there be some reason why there's some error in what that is? That 24% of those people who received certain batches were no longer alive afterward, and when there was only a week of time or something, you see. I mean, who's looking at data that's like that? And all of us should be seen of it, shouldn't we? Because you could say yes or no, but the state, which gets corpus delicti, meaning it doesn't have a body, but it's got some by presupposition, only doing things by presupposition, and we think. And so someone could be doing a lot of things which we could see in history under the colour of law, and arresting people like that whistleblower for charges that apparently was of his or anyone else's deceptive purpose. It's like, what reason would someone like that have to have some deceptive purpose to notice or pick out something from the data that wasn't logical? You'd think, oh, no, this bloke was really hard to do a lot of logical stuff, and all of a sudden, for something just simple as an observation, he's not logical. It does not make sense, really. It's truly disastrous. But a commie plaint isn't a claim, is it? No, it's a fiction lodging actually, it's you or I as a real living being being brought down to a level of a plain tiff or a deaf-ended ant, which those things don't sound right. That's not your species of worm-man. But when a commie plaint was lodged, and all is being put, and there it is, misusing information to disclose data about the jab. It's like, so what? I mean, is that so? I mean, that's what you'd want, wouldn't you? Versus, no, let's not even consider what the information is. Let's just, the messenger just whack the messenger. It's a state agenda, which you could see the local police department could be involved, where somebody had to be like a whistleblower put in jail, you see, and it's illegal, but it's not lawful. So data seen shows death after vaccination, like what we were talking about, and the whistleblower is given notice, but where's the oversight? You see, watchdog isn't there? Supposed to be. Shouldn't that been what would be? And where is it? You see, so when a whistleblower looks around, they go, where is the watchdog? They don't see there is any watchdog. You're looking at data through a payment, and just looking at having set up some system which looked at data through payments, but through those payment systems you could see whether someone was living or somebody wasn't, and this sort of thing. You could set up things so that you could track accounts, and that research is sort of assisted with the design of the whole system that would be in New Zealand. So it was really a smaller nation, and there's one database manager, more or less, for that small nation. And so he's the database manager, the only one. Okay, so was there anybody else? No. But the database manager observed something, and it doesn't matter how outlandish it is, he'd want to be investigating what that is, not, you're not allowed to do anything like you did. It's like, woohoo, it really is too draconian. How much more do you really need to become controllers or engaging the corps of every nation, and using military contracts by the outside nation to apply it against your nation next door, and all applying sophisticated psychological operations, which really is disinformation, and that's an asymmetric war on we the people. You and I, we would have never selected that. Absolutely not. That's under the big Mick. None of us selected that either. And it's just too much to continue to uphold. The past is way too much of a cost to uphold. It is. It's really the coercive interest where everything has been about censorship and track, tag and ID, and everything else, forget it. That's all big tech. And if you're a whistleblower, you could look and see all of them they all ended up sort of getting targeted in things ongoing. And you could see stand-down orders. What's that mean? It means don't investigate. A crime could be given a code that says don't investigate and things. And it's just that somebody would say, that's all set up so it's protecting departments. But it's utter censorship to the hilt. You could see what the cost of it is, that it stopped anybody's hesitation, and now what it is to go on where VAIDS is because of the toxin and stuff. But isn't it that we're going on and we don't think about how our currency could be being undermined by the system has been set up, and that's something which you and I, we should correct, shouldn't we? So a lot of things like various alphabet soup land agencies that should be abolished because it's a criminally run activity and it's life interfering where things are going on, where electoral interference is, and you could see how that demanded censorship and stuff really was used to cause all of that, you see. And so it's a civic duty that you and we have in government to be an oversight. But what happens when you can look and see, there isn't that? Because it's you and I, the fourth estate, which is above that. And where are you and I in the picture? Is it just a senior executive service whispering in someone's ear there? You and I are the enemy for not bothering to look and to see what you and we could do to protect the infrastructure and things to grow and to assist to clear things up and to look into government oversight where something has been and transgression that's existed. But it's a military-industrial complex of big tech censorship that's where patsies are all put by C.B. Cower, criminal bank cartel of the One World Order, into positions where it's a priority where censorship is. You and I, we're not really discussing the facts like what we should, and side issues which are aired all the time non-stop, really distracting and taking often away from actual purpose, which you could see going on, filibuster types of stuff. So hearings which give us a bit of transparency, yes, but like you could see crime going, and how much more crime do you really need? You've got to have the fourth estate to clear things up like that, and just and so otherwise you've got the big mixed censorship, and you've got it getting a response from all these private platforms up to 75% success rate, for removing labelling and soft blocking, stuff that people had, and so it's utterly lawless until that's stopped, and it's a monopolisation. Wrong. You can't have a monopolisation. After that, what have you got? And that monopolisation gave us, like various things through Public Law 94, 564, like section of House Resolution 13955, which is the US Secretary of Treasury could receive no compensation whatsoever. So we with Act of Corps, isn't to receive any compensation. It's the people who own the corpse that receive that compensation. And it's under the management of the IMF, all tricked out, and all corporations around the world are de facto sort of governing bodies. And in 1934, you've got after 1933, we've been talking about it, you've got the Securities Exchange Commission getting set up, instigated, because instigation means it's set up to create a fight, and where the people's labour all gets pledged away, and by live birth, and so you've got all these nations that become as corps themselves, who own parts of the nation here and need to be paid. And so those nations like Japan and Ireland, China, the UK and things, all traded by the Forex trading, takes control over your BC bond. And that's an utterly lawless system after that of an ancient pledging, which is part of the fraud that's against your BC bonds, your birth certificate. So imagine, of course, Jane and John Doe, they're born, and a state, okay, that's a fiction, it creates, and who does that? The controllers, stakeholders behind the scene. And they create an issue, a birth certificate bond, and that's collateralized and converted to make foreign currency, and then it's sold into the privacy more of a criminal banking cartel of one world order system, which then is really not your bond, but it is, yet not. It's like your name has just been used and your body's taken over. But what the private criminal bank cartel of a one world order really system that's created, it then sells that over and over again to investors to raise money for residents, that invest in universities and buildings for commercial sorts of concerns and things, and that's all coming from your BC bond. And what is the bank check really is a credit or a promissory note, and it's a fortune to C.B. Keller, who for them it's positively inducted. For us, it's negative inducted, because you and I are not inducting and considering what it would be for directing currency, which we should, and we would, once the Fourth Estate is active more. And you've got Article 4 and Article 3 courts or King's benches in First Nations. But the control that you can see really is because all of that currency that's made, it's fractionally reserved, and it's like Ponzi'd out and like a pyramidal system, and all from a pledging, and under it you're just chattel in the picture, under commerce as a venue at the courthouse, which is not the proper venue to be under, when you could choose from the land instead. And now you're asking if anybody's living there to be subpoenaed versus you've got corpus delicti behind the scene. Somebody to step forward more because of the procedure is asked for that. You only can have a wedding signature, not something like a stamp. So it's a fraud, or where common law can have not been and a trespass was, and the legal name was used, and that's a fraud. So that to be cleared up, you don't have that anymore. You see, you've got a golden age that comes to be, because currency is positively inducted, as it would be, should be, and gone is the day of usury, which is wrong, and nobody would say that. For thousands of years, people said that wasn't the biggest sin, usury itself. So the amount that would be put to get a bond is put, and that currency is made from like the snap of your finger, as it should. But who owns that at the end of it? You see what I mean? Because the controllers of C.B. Keller, once the Treasury is holding all of that as collateral, it could then loan out and fractionally reserve billions past the value of anything that's held. And all of us as living beings, we've been collateralized into human minerals just to be mind of our energy. And so the self really that you and I have, it's a parent choice, which you're supposed to have. You have maybe as a bit of a pre-debtor, but you don't have as a debtor, you see. But instead, one would have learned maybe how to be preferred stock, this sort of thing, but it's like truly disastrous, the whole system. And it's honest that what's set up really is a treasonous manner, and that everybody was left in 1933 only with House Joint Resolution 192 and the public laws that related. And the consent then was to be able to use a legal name, a fictional name, and I would mean yes. So when you say I, that means yes, you see. So that's not a name, that's a real true name. And those are sorts of things which the Eclipse movement and our work is a bit more about. But the corpse really really is dissolve the republic, basically. Thinking about it, and from 1787 to 1789, there was a change of a republic more to more democracy, almost like 50-50 sort of thing, well, 4951, and a constitute hall was someone would be right there to collect debt from us and pay it to the Credat hall, and that's what a constitute hall means. And so the receiver comes to be the controllers of Subikawa of our corps, and only has been underneath that War Powers Act since the Emergencies War suit, where in 1933 the citizens was then just being asked to have to foot all the bill as an excuse, and you and I, we were all told just to be only few minerals, in the picture, mate. Yeah. So it's a pledging and wasting your credit on a scam, and it's an official position, of course, supposed to be open to that. Positions are supposed to be open to all, right? Yeah. In other words, any position there is supposed to be open. Meaning what? Open to all. You can't be favoured to get to that position. And could you say that so? You'd be hard pressed to find an office which really maybe not for rent. And that the holiday season really is just a terror-organised, directed psyops more on the news and things, and the company controllers set up really an ancient slave system by design. So meanwhile, back at the ranch house, you could see how really slaved out that system is of pledging and hard-proof, non-stop sort of crimes that go on afterward, because it's abridged a natural right. And so where's the quorum sensing in the system? It's gone. So, nature designed something to be more decentralised, not centralised, and showing hard evidence, honest, that the jab is intentional as genocide, and that an ancient system of pledging is being used as like a kill box, more or less, of wasting yours and my credit and causing your natural right to be not upheld, and having no equity interest then upheld either from we the people. It's sort of an official that hasn't done any due diligence whatsoever. And then the false pretextual put event that's designed and run by agents over you or I, by the company, and then everybody's just anybody there sort of is victimised, who's and gaslighted to be, and it's a foot. That's a large defence bill afterward, isn't it? And that's the big nick. If you get mob stalk designation and people, and where meanwhile business is just taken over, like being Black Swan as a force multiplied asymmetric warfare, it doesn't last very long after that. Everybody's witnessing a bridging of boundaries, and false arrests and false imprisonments and things, and where no claim existed, and no charge really is to discharge that's against you, but something fictional was made instead. So that fiction is really which is put, and what's instead, of course, something is going on behind the scene that you wouldn't expect Alphabet Soup Lab, for instance, in any false flag set up, to be undercover, more or less pretextually set up within the crowd, within the group, organising things and making like some grassroots movement is, but it's actual astroturfed instead. And so you look and see people telling the truth where retaliation is, and you've got a gathered group, and the other new victims. You see that gathered group, the other new victims, they'll be the ones that get gaslighted, and so you've got complete, total avenues, yes, for new victims, yes, to be false flags set up by tripwires and all sorts of things. It's just those people all become sort of source development a bit, but it's for the control horse. But it's really true that since 1989, of course, everybody's got used to non-stop problem reaction solution and CB-Cal controllers running that, and $666 trillion or from tax being scammed off with the people as credit to fix stuff ongoing, like climate change, Armageddon, and lots of the scams, like all of it is sort of very covert in its nature. And so the transgression really is what is looked upon, which should be wise, you'd think, by the fourth estate, and that's expressed, and that charges are discharged. And so everybody could really see that things are really being done more, yet you're looking, and we are, all of us, witnessing genocide ongoing otherwise, and where anybody would say that it's not the enemy. In fact, that a system does exist, which is this fourth estate, and that is where the people, and you and I, we haven't activated what this is, or is that, of course, because really who's getting defended is pledging. Who's going to defend pledging? Nobody. How can you defend pledging? You see, you can't defend anything that's based on fraud, that's based on yours and my credit. It's a scam, and that it's a common law trespass and done by legal name fraud. It's all a present recipe, really, for a mass genocidedness, that what's gone on in the past, and documentary evidence really exists that a criminal enterprise really is more at large, where the preferred thing is to say you don't see that, but yet you've really got an off-terrain, outside the nation, common law sort of condition that it's an official position, more or less, that's supposed to be open to all, but you definitely can find hard evidence that most of these officers really are for rent. Yeah, and you've really, you've got this sort of thing going on, quite incredible. It's a CB-Cal system. It's really a predatorial scam, and it's really reality that really is just looking like a B-grade movie. And everybody's under some monopolization, which, how could you say that's not so, and put a monopolized agenda. And so you've really got a one-sided story going on, and that's easy to see, and how misleading it is just to be put to be under a scam, and to live under the controllers more of the CB-Cal and the Big Nick. It's no two-party system really has ever existed. It's just a uni-party in the world, and that bonded under an ancient system of pledging, you see. So everybody is just getting ready to really 90 seconds of the clock before doom, and the reason does exist, of course. 80% really of high cabinet positions, as we said in the shows before, are occupied, and it's ethnicity, and that which really is only 2% more or less of the population of a nation. And that how come you've got such an unfair nepotistic type of infiltration? You could see, isn't this part of what's clandestine, where all is, you see, and people just being used? What's the reason that anything exists where any high-ranking official who really is working more for the company, and often or not, is married to a tranny? And how statistically odd is it that most of these people could be married or they have lives with trannies? And is it because most of them are homosexual, for instance, not heterosexual? What incurs more where somebody's own values is not what yours or mine is overall, and that it doesn't negotiate in good faith? Absolutely not. not negotiating and seeking agreement with your adversary, which that's spiritual, and that you've got faith, honor, and trust, and that things are being done on yours or my behalf. Yeah, it's this company special ops intel, which really, as we've just been talking, could only be a homosexual, more or less. It could have got into the club or the company and got into positions and run over us with foreign policy decisions and things ongoing. Yeah, so it's not a pretty picture, mate, you see, huh? And it's really reality doesn't need a body. It's a fact, not transient perception, that is repeatable by anybody looking, and that wants to continue on. Really, a body doesn't, but truth does, without a sense of I am. Of course, one is a witness, life's just going on. And for you and I, we can have certainly not identified ourselves a way to be just external. Cloud Two Children would always let you know and remind everybody in the chorus more that one shouldn't be considering himself to be the doer, for instance, and that would be the cause of someone to be definitely stuck more in some mentality. But in our awareness, it's really the fourth estate. It's what's common, and this is what's just looking at things to see what's common. That's not you or I. That's just common sense, common law. And so what's I aware more is you or I seeing all which is happening and influencing, yet you and I are not influencing that outcome. It's something that's being done to us, but something is natural. You've got perfect detachment where you are, and courage and bravery, of course, to be searched for liberty and be upholding what liberty is, meaning equality between people, to have justice and freedom more. So being desireless and more I-aware, more perfect in detachment, it's really not getting stuck on any pressure or fear bank. I mean, in life really is the river, really flowing more there, and reality is in need of a body, like I said, because, you know, what's going on if your mind was deeply asleep, and could somebody focus even more really where unity is and what's not divided, you see. It's infinite, which all of us really return and arrive more, and we're not this actor straddling back and forward on the stage and just of a certain bondage that's lost to someone's inadvertence. I mean, you know. Yeah, so what really could we be doing that's more spiritual? Isn't necessarily that you have some ambition or anything, or that you gave up something personal or anything. Dot arm is like when you look at it as a server, which we can all own, which we should, and it's a public ledger, and that it timestamps things and is impartial and is like under a common law trust. And these are things which could really help us if you could think of things which somebody would who's living more, looking at things and clearing up wherever there was some prejudicial response, because it would have been just a missed opportunity to have learned how to respond more effectively, really. And bliss really isn't found in anything temporary, certainly not, and not to be stuck on some externalization of ourselves, yet really to find who is real and who is the real estate of unlimited value versus fixed, and coming from a republic, coming from land and revenuing revenue and republicing debt and zeroing out. And so where people's lips move, should it be defining what this real reset is? Yes, positive induction? Yeah, I think so. I mean, looking into the mechanisms more of underneath whole brain patterning, could one show more that you or I or anybody is, they rebel against confusion, certainly, and you're not just a rebel against where one could have been pain avoiding, for instance. So it's really a playbook that's been to have stolen a vote where you are inside yourself by illusionary reasoning and learning what is slippery slope. Don't let someone use slippery slope on you. Don't let doorman be done, or bandwagon, or ad hoc reasoning, which you should really learn the fallaciousness of that sort of reasoning. You've got laundering currency by wars, and you've got foreign agents often going back and forward to each other, making sure a lot of money is spent somewhere, but truly it's not going anywhere. It's being spent to manage some, funds that need to be to control the crap out and manipulate an election instead. And so deceit is never ending, of course. One could keep in mind, we've got various places where war's going on, where counter-offensive, and should it be estimated that maybe there's 125,000 soldiers that have been murdered, in the meat grinder on the front line there in Ukraine, but Patsy, of the dozen, could really be lost, but yet who's going to stop the overflow and all the crowds that's going on 24/7? You've got one bloke running for office that only 12 people could show up, and yet you've got an overflow of crowd 24/7 for someone else. And what happens where it's really asked that everybody to stay home, you've got to wear your masky, and no social events, keep 6 feet apart, and 15 minutes away, and not actually all of that just to control and spend your credit, and on advertising themselves and endorsing non-stop other ideas about currency and about, the digital and the ownership of what that is, and hey, you're not going to own any property. It's like presupposing an agenda, and it's track, tag an idea and surveil you. Basic. It's technocratic. It's corporate. It's a nation's purchases and currency. Everybody could really see that's only aligned with some editorial slant. So that's what you get under a monopoly, isn't it? Yes. And what could we expect? No, you couldn't. Under a monopoly, you've got to get rid of the monopolization, marketing, and those people are just marketing and doing public relations for their own selves, like some rapper non-stop, and it's really lawfully not properly serving. But should it? What's lawful serving? It's certainly if somebody's elected, but certainly not when somebody wasn't elected, selected. It's we the people's credit that's spent, that's hardwired by fascism, and everything aids. Otherwise, a pandemic, which it's because a toxin that's been controlled, introduced, and so you've got people get put upon when the truth is being put about what anything is. But it only calls a prototype, and you've got billions of genome that have got all the instructions that go into a body to produce all of that spike protein, and it's introduced so the body would manufacture the spike protein. It sort of really is a great excessive cause of mortality. And so that's the playbook, isn't it, eh? To steal your currency and lock down and control voting so easily stolen, of course, under the guise of some deadly apparent contagion, which doesn't exist. They need to be asked to be shown that doesn't exist. But we, the people, really question the policy that's adopted and where you could see stuff people being retaliated against, that's definite. That should be that's another crime of itself. So it shows that some criminal intent is where somebody's doing what they can to try to cover something up. All of a sudden you go, no, definite. That's a crime going on. The media really is implicit for spreading the new strange, and all the new strange and novel bat substance that's natural, that travels faster than a jet. And it's similar to 1918, the Spanish flu. You see, historically, the company patsy interfering with national governments and doing the bidding on behalf of controllers and stakeholders, laundering currency. And you've got all of it supposed to be like it's a bill that you have in your hand or something that's returned to the Federal Reserve Bank, and that's spent. A lot of racketeering and interfering is going on, you see, and it is because you to activate the fourth estate. Otherwise, like I said, you've got laundering currency between foreign agents that really just going between two different nations and use their own company royalty to go along with what that is, and it's to manipulate and not spend the money on like what it should, but it's spent back here to help deal with an election and have a lot of money. It's never ending on us, yes? Right? Until that's stopped. It's just like the backstory is that you've got a company agent that's behind a lot of things. Yeah. Basically. Yeah. How much time do we have, mate?
Well, Dr. Jubb, I want to be selfish for a minute and ask a personal question, if that's all right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I've been a student of yours since a long time, and I guess I'm not a great student in general, but I feel like there's a lot that I have to learn, and I want to be a good representative of you and your teaching, and I just I can't help but feel like because of my condition, my physical condition, I think of things like, for example, many in 2012 and 13, when we started making videos together, and it was like the videos that we're making together, you really were leaving messages. When I look back at them, from now till then, and it was like there were messages that I'm just realizing now what they actually. There was like a sub-communication under about like maybe relating it to my personal experience. So it was like a message that has a general meaning, and then the sub-communication, which I don't know if I'm supposed to relate it to my ongoing experience, but I think about all the things that was going on in my life personally, and it's like it's a great message for me to learn from, with my family and my own behavior. So I'm just, I guess, wondering if I should be thinking, when you're speaking to me today and recently and today and stuff, like, am I hallucinating, or is this the sub communication? I know it's accurate.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Somebody somebody within themselves is open, like you said in your story. I mean, where we are, like in your story, the I is the silent witness, as you said, also observing the behaviour, but not any behaviour itself in your identity, and looking overall always and sensing what could be learned that one is practicing into a future moment, any tumultuousness, so they become very good at managing things within a circumstance where something is. Three ways people learn, of course, is through imitation and through contemplation and through experience. One is ongoing, where learning is for sure, and it's not necessary, as you said, to have knowledge to do the work. I think many would agree with you. Of course, that makes sense. Knowing, as you said, most would agree with you, can't be existing where someone is in the present, because that's being in a void, being receptive, like you said, and so that's not carrying around any knowledge. And physically, we have a certain capacity because you've got substance that assists you more, have very easy ability to have learned how to forget, for instance, like you were saying, and being very good at remembering to forget, and so forgetting to remember, like you said, that's a skill, because so many things you have awareness about, and it's not like suddenly it's not there. It's just that you, as you said, are no longer necessary for something to be remembered. And it's not necessary, as you said, either, first. I think people would agree with you that somebody coming from memory isn't going to cause them to be too much in the moment. That's true. They're not going to be able to perform very well in the ring or anywhere either, because they're sort of in their head versus like being in the moment, like you said, more mindless. No, it's more mindless, in fact, and empty and receptive. So somebody can be forward in something, and how did somebody catch on to what this is? What happened that serendipitously you come to express the things you're doing? And I think, like in your story, something doesn't exist which is inferior or superior. That's true. And that the only thing which one can focus on is attitude. That's true. And those are things which wisely one should. And then the other distinction that could be between us and people wherever is our attention or focus. Those two things, like you said, if I summarised it. And when we look at a picture more, we've got good pattern recognition. And could we be using whole brain functioning patterning because somebody could look more into this? Could someone look at the bigger picture to see, how Zionism itself and Jesuits and Christianity and these religions and things also all have an agenda which is all being sculpted and shaped. But ecclesiastical maxims really exist, which you and I should, which wisely we do follow, because like you put life with life and dead with dead, and you can't mix up the living with the dead, which is what fascism is. And the nation's head, for instance, in secret, could be as an agent, as company, and working on policy, which really is being foreigner controlled as an outcome, not from we the people, and only just designed to strain more internal relation and distract people from, and so that can be a nation could be more deceived. So currency could really be laundered ongoing and keep a criminal ruse going, and an operation which is some idea That's not yours or my idea. Yeah. So it's, I think actually you and I are really looking at things, all of us, and you could see something living which is real versus things which is fictional. And you and I, we should be defending the upholding of title and natural right, which we need to in this time. It's truly incredible, matter of fact. But getting rid of what is a personal need, it doesn't mean that something didn't or wouldn't. It's not that attention exists to anything except, like, not how many times somebody got knocked down, but how fast and quick they stood back up again fully, and how incredible it was to see such. That's remarkable itself, incredible, yeah. And that's a currency you and I have, and so we can truly look at things and clear things up. You can stand back a bit and get things going as our sisters truly who get underway more. You've got certainly, like the story that we started with, which is that vaccination database that is really an independent observation, and where's the government officials looking at what that data is, which should be, and how come if it was so many beloved that kind of died because some batches were sort of truly wrong. It's an example of casualties, of course, and wouldn't you say that where criminality is, you just don't want anybody in there to be held accountable, and but it's really a charge of genocide where you see like wanton murder, just of the innocent, and carpet bombing that's occurred in Nagasaki, Hiroshima, and the lie that a bomb was dropped when it wasn't, but all these people were carpet bombs, and many more bombs having been dropped, today just in a small moment in a small area than ever was carpet bombed, on people in Japan, in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It's really for profit, isn't it? And land grab more where someone is. And it's really a title that you and I have, that's where your right flows from. Otherwise, it's a land grab because you've got gas and oil, and it's just someone else who wants to run and control what that is. It's a telling moment. You've got China Inc. and interest all paid on bonds that was bought, and China and all these other nations being the creditor of the US corps. And so that's a reason why they would come to San Francisco and say good day to who might be the next bloke, and go to that bloke to connect with him, because you're selecting and looking at that selection way ahead of time, aren't you? And so the bloke comes and he visits one spot, anyway, then you're going to get a travel ban to China and all these other places. Look, it's coming, and the mysterious disease X dubbed the white lung, and onward. And you've got expected officials that really are all recommending a longer war, and you've got Israel Inc. sort of pounding, of course, and genociding. Yet, meanwhile, the background, we've been talking about the company and the currency that's laundered and laundering that's going on. We've got 195 national corps, which is bankrolled by the controllers of Supercarrier, and agents can be just in the pocket where somebody is in a foreign company, members all work together. So it's a story and a narrative which people should look at, isn't it? And cannot just dismiss. But what would be a reason to dismiss that? I don't think so. It's sort of really what's expert validity about the picture, overall. Yeah, so you and I, we're supposed to be the intended beneficiary of the BC bond, and the artificial person there isn't you, and it's somebody else who owns what's put in there and using your all caps name. And if anybody had a complaint against you, that system would have been a claim against any private property that you had, because it puts you into a lesser bargaining position in not having equity, and kidnapped a child like mine. A child then becomes just a ward of the state. Everybody's just a ward of the state with the BC the way it is until it's been corrected. And if it's existing that somebody's a fiction, and then you put a lien against your own fiction, and you've had to have done that, so now you could get paid. Otherwise, the control of the CDK system kind of just taken that away from you, you see. Excuse me. Anyway, it's a bit to be considering, isn't it, eh? Yeah? Yeah, because there's laws of the land, which is the venue at the courthouse that should be selected, versus being under commercial clause of where no right natural is for BC, your bond. And the BC really needs to then be authenticated and get put to the US secretary and put to the state. So you get a number and shows that you're the owner more of that BC. But otherwise, most everybody is a slave, and it's a cuss-up number, it's a security, which is a birth certificate and a social security bond. And in that system, everybody's pledged their security to pay off the debt. So those just racking that up, they don't care that they've racked it up, but who's at the receiving end of it is looking at all of us and saying, that's a system that's really broken, because it's being used in a manner that most people could say, certain it is. Collective punishment must be about those people, because they're not caring to be internally regulated, and that's being controlled by the outside. Yeah. So from 1871, the feds finally made out with a charter, and all got finalised more in 1913. You got the United States just going from being an adjective to the word united to come to be then a noun, and you've got duplicated types of conditions of deceit and in semantics that's operating, and certain not for you or I maybe in any full disclosure much really at all. But if you wrapped it up just what we've been talking a bit about, you really could say that if one searches within a county first, you could see if your BC needed exemplification, it's the state name, that's your Department of Health, or if your BC is really done by the Secretary of the State, but it's authenticating and an authentication of the seal, and once that's done, that authentication, which is called an apostolate, one fills out things, and that like a theatre that's between nations really is a need to have that authentication where people are where your birth certificate is, and then you obtain the assets more probable, and that's who you are, where you're holding the true certified copy more credited, more of the legal process. But a debt that's challenging, anybody's certificate of title, it's to get your assets, that's all gone on, and it's your storeman that was the big holder of all of that and title, and if you placed a lien against that yourself, otherwise, the system has to lean against it themselves, and one is underneath what that is. Yeah. So these things really, need to be honest to God cleared up. The BC really is put onto bond paper. You're looking at seals, watermarks, and things, and it's a foreign state that's issued those bonds, and it's all caps, and it's owned. It means it's owned. It's a corporation. It's a dead man's state, and it's a transmitting public utility as a corpse. And there's and then you've got a register there that's in your birth certificate, and that's a probate officer. You see, so all that reads is really a promissory note that's issued, against someone's name, and which you can become a secured party creditor and take more control of what this is and learn more about that. But a fourth estate, honest, takes care of a lot of this. That's really a history that we just talked a bit about, how the birth certificate comes to be, and then how other things come along where substance was taken away. And once substance was taken away, your title was as well, and we're led to where we are. But who did issue that really registration is the foreign state of state organisation, and that all caps really belongs to that private issuer. And so your BC certificate, which really is an all caps corporation, is really a fictional state. And none of us, you didn't give permission for any of that to have been bonded. And you've got a reversionary interest as a holder of that bond, and evidence really of a crime against you. Absolutely. It's fraudulent. It's non-disclosure. And it's past, non-logical syntax, and doesn't add up. And it's against the parent, your mother, as an informant. It's truly evidence of an unconscionable, really, contract, like we started out talking about, with a baby. And there was no full disclosure at the hospital, and the BC really is a patent evidence, really, of a crime that's against you and I. And all you would need to do is to really get two witnesses that state you're the principal of such a document, and where you've got standing to sue. Your state, of course, you're really in a lawful position, and in the legal system doesn't have a hold on anything, but it's like that. And that one could have done a UCC1 filing and learned a bit more about this, and then had things be more under public law, and that one could prove that one's vessel really is more under public law. Otherwise, you can get things discharged under House Joint Resolution 192, which people would learn more about what that is. But proof of your ownership and the holder of your name, and proof of fraud against your BC bonds as an unconscionable act, contracting with a baby, pretty ridiculous. And you've just got this common law trespass and a legal name fraud that's behind everything, isn't it? And so it's about time that some of that all gets cleared up, isn't it? Yes? Yes, it is. And so the family, as it can be, more about kicking off more the fourth estate, which is Article 4, Article 3 courts, which is King's Bench, where this can be, and studying and looking into this work. And really, that's the primary thing which all of us should do. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. I think that's all good observation of one's own self. Different strokes it is today than the strokes of the past. What somebody's recordness is of an event can't pass as the event. But most would get booed off the stage pretty quick smart if they just start talk about memories they having inside, or starting to talk about experiences that they had and things. People are going to yawn really quick and going to, other than stay tuned in. Yes? So anyway, I think it's really great we keeping our shows active and good. Anyway, mate, when will we do another one? It's up to you.
Oh, Dr. Jubb, your time is priceless, and I know you're you're so giving of yourself, and I want you to know how much I appreciate it. So I I just
Oh, when would
leave
you
it up to
when would
you.
you be ready to? Yeah.
I'm gonna
Oh,
be trying
I
to stream
reckon.
every night, so
Yeah.
I don't want to
Okay. So
take up
well,
too
then
much of your time.
we could. I know we could. Oh, let's see tomorrow. Yeah.
We could do it a few
Right.
times a week.
I'll be. Um. I'll see. Let's. If you call me, you can ask me. I'll look and see if I'm there
Okay.
tomorrow. Because I'll be traveling quite a bit during the day. Yeah. But there'll be some places which I'll be just in stillness for a bit. So
Okay, man.
it's possible. But certainly, like tomorrow night might be good, or the
Okay.
next day. Yeah. Let's
Amazing.
connect in with each other, Lukey. Anyway,
Okay, man.
love to you and love to everybody listening, mate. Yeah.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
mate. Love you,
Have a
mate.
great night.